We'll see what happens. Hello, good evening, and welcome to F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T episode 119. Yours sincerely, Mr. Reg Varney. It's a futile fall show, then all 525 songs, etc., etc. Thanks to the annotated fall, few, and all them what fall. Joined by Lord Saggerton Temples. How you doing, Ezra?
Did you say Saggerton Temples?
That is the current iteration of the name, yes.
Sagging Town Temples. I do feel like a town is sagging down around my temples. You're right, yeah.
Happens to the best of us. And Pemberton Walker, how you doing, Al?
I'm all right. I'm just going to pen.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Good. You've been on the continent this summer while we've been away.
Yeah, watching
anything
Jackie
to
Chan
report?
films. Yeah, it's strange being abroad, as you would know. Being out a week.
I heard that.
What was going on? Where's the fucking pie shops?
Yeah. I hear it's just wall to wall Jackie Chan and Jerry Lee Lewis over there. And Tiny Tim Twitter has sent over messages from the beyond, so that'll be good. And I'm Treebeards something. Today I'm gonna take a brave stab at something that I was not looking forward to, but wasn't as bad as I thought it could have been. A few dozen passed on the Virgin Prunes and our good friend Gav Friday. As we know, he appeared on 3 songs in the Wonderful and Frightening era. And so I spent a couple of hours listening to the discography. There's not much there. I did a couple of records. And I'll play you a few. Let's see what we think.
Old and grey. Older than
my face
yesterday.
Was older.
Yesterday.
That strange man on the corner.
Alrighty, so we had Come to Daddy off the first thing they did, I think it's called songs for the body. Prior to their debut album, this was an EP, and then Man on the Corner from a Heresy, which is also an EP, and then Bao Dachong from their debut LP, from their first album. So Virgin Prunes apparently meant the Outsiders, which was interesting because obviously the Fall were also called the Outsiders, but it was less clear as to why Virgin Prune meant outsider. Apparently, this was something they would call people. The lads in the band would call people who were strange or unusual, but also beautiful, who see the world through the eyes of a child. Post-punk band formed in Dublin in 77 and disbanded in 86, although the band carried on for another 5 or 6 years. The main vocalist was Googie and Gavin Friday. These were made-up names. Guitarist was Dick Evans. His brother was the Edge from U2, and actually all of the lads were mates. Youthful gang in the early 70s Dublin, and apparently it was Friday who gave Bono his name. Yeah, we'll watch a little bit of a video in a little bit, because obviously they were known for the kind of experimental kind of stage shows as well as the music. But you know, the early music there, you know, definitely has elements of P.O.D.C.A.S.T, and which is around the same time those came out. First single was 81. And then their first album was 82, which is If I Die, I Die. That third song there, which was Bao Dachong, which is off their album from 82, is very similar to Gav Friday, which is really interesting. That a Virgin Prunes song sounds like Gav Friday, but came after. But anyway, yeah, any thoughts on the Prunes there?
Yeah, I picked up on it. You mentioned P.O.D.C.A.S.T, because I did sort of like think that the vocals were kind of like a cross between sort of like Lydon and Tim Smith from the Cardiacs. But yeah, I thought there was a huge whiff of the birthday party to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very much, very gothy.
Yeah. They're interesting. I mean, I read a bit about them because there was an article in the Quietus about them a while back, and I'm semi-curious about them myself because of the Fall connection. And it seems like context is also quite important here, because I think they were probably the only performance art weirdo rock band in town when they started out. And I think that was probably quite an important role for them to take on culturally, and probably led to them making quite a big splash. And hearing that music, which is the only music of theirs I've heard, I thought it was pretty good. Really liked it. His vocals fit very well in the context of what they're doing. It's just a real shame that they encouraged U2.
Yeah. Gav Friday's stuff I've listened to a little bit, but and it's not as wild as this, and because of that, it's not as interesting. So yeah, some of it doesn't sit well with me. I still find his voice annoying, and the pretension of the music when I'm not in the mood for it. You know, if I am, then yeah, I get a birthday party and Pilly, even a bit of Scott Walker kind of stuff coming in there. But if I'm not, I'm just like absolutely not. But I much preferred listen to this stuff than the 3 tracks he does with the Fall. So obviously did Copped It, Stephen Song, and what was the other one? Copped It, Stephen Song, and
come on, there's only 500 and odd to choose from.
It was the really irritating B-side, wasn't it?
I can't remember what the other one was, but anyway, he ruined them all. He ruined all of them. The consensus is there. But I did enjoy this little trip. So I'll play you a couple of the live stuff. Obviously, the listeners won't be able to get the visuals, but it'll be good for us in the room. This is Team for Thought from 79 and Decline and Fall. And, Gay Byrne from the Late Show, the Irish thing, he introduces them. So this is kind of like, this is prime time, early evening Irish TV in the late 70s, like as if they'd gone on Granada Reports or something. So
we have a group with us tonight who are certainly young people. They're a young group who hail mainly from Dublin, and they are unique and different. There is no other group in the business doing what they're doing at the moment. What exactly they're doing, I'm not too sure, mind you, but there's nobody else doing it, and you have to make up your own mind. Would you welcome, please, the Virgin Prunes?
and wine were on his hands when they bound him with the dead, the poor dead woman whom he loved and murdered in her bed. Scorching still, do you know I was a sinner? I paid, I could not fail, I'm hopelessly.
So yeah, just imagine if I would have been 5 in 79 watching that early evening, it would have been brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so they the challenging kind of improvisational kind of performances and very theatrical elements of folk music, and obviously very literary as well, which is probably why Gavin Friday had a really good connection with Smith. Apparently they wrote letters and Christmas cards back and forth for many years, James Joyce and lullabies and dark ambient. So they put out their first single in 81, signed to Rough Trade, put out their single in 82, produced by Colin Newman of Wire, and then by 86 they were down to 4-piece, and they did a second album, The Moon Looked Down and Laughed, which wasn't as good. The first record, If I Die I Die, is where all the good stuff on, and for me, and a big range. I'm only sticking to playing the stuff that's kind of what we expect, but there's quite a few nice instrumentals, like much quieter, and even some kind of relatively like indie kind of songs on there, which I think Googie, the other singer, sings. And yeah, so they were done and dusted in about 4 or 5 years, but highly influential. And yeah, like you said, Ezra, probably the only gang in town doing that kind of stuff in the early 80s, and I imagine really inspirational on a lot of people. Any thoughts on that madness?
I quite like the music, but when you showed the videos, it was just like, oh my god, this is dead annoying, and I couldn't listen to the music, just like watching it, going, oh, you pretentious bastards. So live, I probably wouldn't have liked them, but yeah, I can listen to it quite happily.
Yeah, I'm absolutely the opposite there. I was just thinking like, wow, this would be absolutely fucking ace to see at the time or any other time. But I always love a bit of performance, up on the stage. It always enriches things for me. I mean, I can see there is a kind of staginess to it, right? It's definitely staged, but I can enjoy that level of artifice as well if it's done with some kind of like passionate intent, and you can feel that there is a passionate intent going on behind that. And it just boggles my head that the mates would go on to form U2. You would think that you would be watching the Virgin Prunes rehearsing or performing. You might come up with a better idea than whatever the fuck it was they thought they were doing when they started U2, because it's just fucking worse than almost any other band I can think of, apart from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
What about the Manic Street Preachers?
Yeah, well, at least the Manic Street Preachers have, like, I don't know, good politics.
Fair enough. I'm definitely more with Ezra on this side. It's more palatable when I see it in context of him swanning about with a baby, like a doll of a baby, like stuck to his shoulder, and I'm all for a bit of early evening madness. You can imagine right now, even now, if that was on the One Show, whatever, people would be like, "What is this?" It's like, it's been around since the beginning of culture, hasn't it? That kind of people just really staged and hammy kind of stuff, but it can be effective, and it's definitely good fun. All right, I'll finish up this bit by playing a couple more, couple of songs from their debut LP, If I Die I Die, and then just one song from The Moon Looked Down, their last album.
fathers, they are real men. We are just boys. Games playing dangerous and blood, baby, it must be spilled to make up for our daddy's guilt. It's all I ever wished for, all I ever wanted, all I ever wished for, all I ever wanted.
Yeah, so yeah, Caucasian Walk, Baby Turns Blue off their first record, and Sons Fine Devils off their second and final album. Yeah, you can see why Colin Newman of Wire, the influence there as well, especially on that first record. And that second one has more than a whiff of Barbarism Begins at Home that we've talked about before. Yeah, any final thoughts on the Prunes?
Yeah, good stuff. The wife's got If I Die, I Die on vinyl, so I'll have to dig it out at some point when our child's grown beyond the vinyl eating stage of his existence, or died of vinyl poisoning.
It's I think I'll go back to that record a couple more times. I did enjoy it, but got to be in the mood for the Prunes. But
what was Gav up to nowadays?
he's still around doing records. I don't know if he's released anything too recently. I've seen him here and there doing soundtracks and doing he's done some stuff with Bono in the past as well, but yeah, he did, it seems like he took a big break. He'd done an album maybe 4 or 5 years, 2011 Catholic, and then Echo Homo in 2024. So yeah, bits and bobs, soundtracks here and there, but he looks like he's had a few years doing something else, but who knows? Who knows what he's up to? He's covered Suicide along the way, and I know apparently he did a track on a compilation where he covered Slates and Slags, but couldn't find it. Couldn't find any evidence of that existing. So maybe if anyone out there's got it. Let's move on to the main event. So tonight we got Squid Lord up against Totally Wired, and then I should have put these all together. And we have Early Days of Channel Fuhrer up against What About Us, and then finally we have Sinister Waltz against Garden. So some of those might be clear cut. There might be a couple there that are a bit tricky, but let's have a listen first to Squid Lord, or Squid Law, depending on which version you're talking about. Could have been Seminole Live. Could have been a heck of an EP. In the end, it was a controversial album. Alistair, what's Squid Lord do for you?
Was it that Marty described a Seminole Live as? It was the worst piece of shit I've ever worked on, or something.
Yeah, basically. But she says like whatever covers we could grasp together. Now, given that there's basically only 3 new songs on it, but they're all decent. This is one of them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, like I said before, the version of Pay Your Rates on this really good. But yeah, Squid Law, a bit ploddy, despite like shitloads of energy being spent on the drumming. But you got a nice bass line. Guitar starts getting mad towards the end, which is good. Quite like that. Yeah, it's a bit of a slow burner, but it pays dividends. You know, if you sort of like give it the time, give it that investment. And it really reminds me of a song. I don't know if we did kind of like went here when we did it in the first round, but there's a Yardbirds song, I think it's called something like Happenings 10 years time ago, that reminds me of it slightly. It could just be me, sort of like with my usual kind of tenuous link, but yeah, I think that there's a bit of that in it. Yeah, not a bad tune, like for the Seminole.
Let's have a
Just
listen. We'll see if you're right. Give you that. It's not exactly close, but I tell you what, and we did play this last time, but this is what it is close to. The awful Stone Roses comeback single from 2016. Yeah, Ezra, what's Squid Lord do for you?
Oh, it's dead good. I think that, like, for me, it feels like it's one of them Fall tracks which are cut from the same cloth as some other Fall tracks. And I feel it's like, yeah, I was searching the memory banks trying to think of which particular track it was reminding me of, but I couldn't really find it myself. But it's just something about that kind of like almost Motown chug of the dun 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 dun. Yeah, but could be Lud Gang.
I think it's Lud Gang. Let's have a listen, because that's what struck me. Which was about 5 years before, right?
Yeah, a lot of it's in the rhythm, though, I think. Definitely with the drumming.
But yeah, I really enjoy it. I think that Seminole Live is a very underrated record. I mean, it's a live album, so you should always curb your expectations a little bit before you tangle with those. But it's leavened with some original tracks, some original recordings, this being one of them. Some weird kind of Lovecraftian revenge fantasy. Not sure what he's looking for revenge for. Where are we? Yes. So he's tracking down three teens who I suppose beat him up, maybe beat up the Squid Lord himself. Obviously, Sheepshag Milltown is number one. Second one, Streak of Piss. To make him blind will be fun, but it won't make a difference. Really nice. Third one, Stood Behind Me, then he held my arms, but in the Hope Hospital, his bed will be in a draft, in a geriatric germ well. I curse his family and wish them poor, that he'll have time to dwell on Squid revenge, cooped up in 3 months of pure hell. So I like it. Yeah, I like it. I like revenge. I'm glad me and Marky Smith have that in common.
He gets the third lad gets off light, doesn't he? We're just having a draft in his bed, but obviously
he catches a cold, right?
He does catch a cold, and something's put him in Hope Hospital, which is Salford, the hospital in Salford, right?
Well, it used to be.
Yeah. Well, they changed the name, but the hospital's still there now, isn't it? I think it's as far as I know. For me, wiry riff, dirgy stomping, all kinds of weird noise going on in the background. It's very there's a lot of very strange kind of noises, like deep buzzes and things that almost get in the way. Semi-consequential is what I've put. Leon says, a curse upon some scum. Seminole version sounds terrible in comparison to Peel Sessions, with one of the finer late 80s efforts with a glam Motown stomp. Top curses include his bed will be in a draft, and I curse his family and wish them poor. Yes, let's have a listen to the Peel Session version, which is called Squid Lord. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is a way better version, especially those synth stabs. Michael A says, like Room to Live, Seminal Live is very underrated by the people who made it. Masha Schofield says some harsh words. Steve Hanley was dismissive. I love side one. This is a solid track. The PO version has the edge on the SL version, correct? And Max says, gotta love the curse of the hospital bed being in a draft. What is that weird rumbly subby noise? Yeah, same thing, Max. That's what I was thinking. Is that, I mean, we'll give him the benefit that it is intentional, but it does almost derail the track. Yeah, good stuff. Maybe not top tier, but good stuff indeed. A number of people said it does sound like Junkman, which of course the Fall did cover later. But while we're indulging ourselves, let's have a bit of a listen to the Groundhogs Junkman and see whether that is what they ripped off. If by ripping off you mean singing the exact same vocal melody, then guilty.
Yeah.
Stu, what does Stu think? Stu thinks this a good catchy riff and some solid thump, but maybe a bit inconsequential. Also made me realize that Junkman is basically the vocal part from this with worse lyrics, and the lyrics aren't as good here. The kind of the track that gets better the less you focus on it. Hard, harsh words there. God, man, lend me a hand. They think 3-on-1 is a normal thing. Network 7 encouraged them, but today they picked the wrong man. Yeah, an interesting tale. Very Lovecraftian. It's unclear as whether how the Squid Lord takes his revenge, and also there's some story that maybe there was some tour bus shenanigans that led to the emergence of the Monitor Slag Eddy. Going into the ocean and coming back out covered in seaweed and being called Squid Lord. But if you want to read Funky Size's book, you can find out more about that. Any final thoughts on Squid Lord before we move on?
Yeah.
Good. So it's up against a little something that we like to call Totally Wired, a single from the year of our Lord, 1980.
ニトリ太田
Totally wired. I'm totally wired. I'm totally wired. Totally wired. Can't you see a butterfly stomach ground? I drank a jar of coffee and then I took some of these and I'm totally wired. Totally wired. I'm totally wired. I'm totally wired. My heart and I agree.
Totally Wired by the Fall, probably the only Fall song that most people know. Most famous Fall song. Ezra, what do you think?
Yeah, it's fucking ace. I mean, I seem to remember there was a bit of pushback against Totally Wired the last time it was on this podcast. Some people were damning it with faint praise, and for me, I feel like it's peerless. I'm not a person that usually goes in for calling things anthems, but if I had to pick an anthem for the time of this music, the time this song was released, I would probably go for this, because I think it sums up all of the threat and the promise and the interest of the punk movement pretty nicely. Musically, it's really, really nice and interesting. Great dynamics, great performance, really fucking funny, interesting lyrics. Doesn't put a foot wrong for me.
It does not indeed. just the age-old problem of trying to hear it with fresh ears. But I think I was able to not listen to it for probably a year or so, and so I really like that snare drum is tuned in such a weird way that it's almost like an 808 at this point. It's just bouncing along, frantic bass. And that's all you need. Riley's backing vocals are perfect, spot on. Magical, minimal, just enough build, just enough variation. But I thought 2 minutes would have been all you needed. I was thinking of Tutti Frutti, you know, the story of Tutti Frutti. Like they wrote it and it was like 45 seconds long. And so they put a sax solo in it and then played the entire song again. I just like copied and like just basically took the tape and copied it and put it again. So, and it's still only just over 2 minutes long. And it's Tutti Frutti. It's an absolute Stone Cold classic. That for me is what should have happened. But still good. Guitars are buried in the single version. Michael Lee later says we should listen to the Part of America they're in, so we will have a listen. For me, that's the only thing I would like to done different. I want more guitars, more in the red, more guitars. Alistair, what do you want from this?
I'm in complete agreement with what you just said there, scribbled down in here. The sound on it is absolute pants. Yeah, it's an all right song. It's kind of like led by bass and vocals. Agree with you again when you said good snare sound on it, but it's just like it's lacking something to me, and it's it gets onto that bit of My Heart, and I agree. And it's sort of like it's building up, but it's just like it just sounds a bit empty. I think it's controversially. I think as it was me who was damning it with faint praise, but it's a good tune. But I think there's better stuff from this era. But you can give it credit for. Yeah, they're moving away from the witch trial sound. So, they're stepping out a little bit into like new territory. But yeah, the sound of it's a bit crap. Guitar should be a lot better, a lot louder. But yeah, despite the criticism, I do like it, and I buzz off it when I hear it played on WFMU, which is about at least once a month.
Yeah, it's only one of the greatest songs of all time, but that's just not good enough for you, is it, Alistair? it's got to just try a bit harder. Leon said a perfectly formed pop of coiled tension goes from tension to tension with no release. It almost threatens to be too straightforward for the Fall, like the Buzzcocks or a Gang of Four, but contains too much bile for either of those to contain. Plus the great line, "You don't have to be weird to be weird," which is a Beefheart, apparently Beefheart commercial, and when the stemming probably from the Hunter S. Thompson, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. Yeah, Michael Lee, if the Fall had stopped at Hex, this would have been considered the gateway song to getting into the Fall. It's catchy, fun, weird, and representative of the Fall sound. The version on the Part of America they're in is peak version for me, and it's lovely. We have a video of that very performance where the Fall might be looking the coolest they ever had. What happened to the video for the rest of that night? I do not have the video, but this is an audio podcast, so it does not matter. I am going to play the version from live in New York. It's Totally Wired. Bit of ropey drumming there going on, but come on, lads,
Yeah.
You can do it. You can make it work.
I'm totally wired, son. Totally wired. Totally wired. Totally wired. Can't you see? Totally wired. Can't you see? A butterfly stomach ground. I drank a jar of coffee, and then I took some of these, and I'm totally wired. Totally wired. Totally wired. I'm totally wired. Can't you see? Totally wired now.
Good stuff indeed. Good stuff. Max says, what can one say about Totally Wired? I'm struggling to think of something. I once tried to do a drum and bass version of it and it was truly dreadful. I think we all know, Max, we need to hear that. So please send it our way. I wish the really good bits towards the end comprise the whole song. I feel similarly. Totally Wired says, Stu, good stuff, if a bit weedy in the production other than the nice and thundering drum sound. I love the razor blade guitar interjections, and the bass line is to die for with the subtle syncopations and overall variation in the chorus. I also love the line, took some of these, which is weirdly evocative. According to Julia Adamson, this was Smith's least favorite song to sing. I'd be interested to know why. And in reference to the line, if I was a communist, a rich man would bail me, the opposite applies. The morning light, another fresh fight. He once said to Shane McGowan, Engels, he was a factory owner in Manchester exploiting 13-year-old girls. Learn your history, pal. Learn your history. Not many people would have a song that's mostly about amphetamines, but managed to get a couple of digs at Engels and Marx along the way. Any thoughts on the Wired? Or shall we go to the vote?
That live version, it really needed to be fast. Well, it suited it being faster live than the ploddiness of the recorded studio version, I think. Bit more energy.
Which way are you going then, Al? Are you going with
Totally Wired?
Totally Wired or whatever it was up against?
That other one.
Ezra, which way are you going?
Yeah, this is not difficult. It's got to be Totally Wired, isn't it?
It's easy, isn't it? Yeah. So Max, Michael E, and Stu all go for Totally Wired. Chris, our other patron, has only chimed in on one song this evening, but it's a good one. So Totally Wired easily sees off the Squid Lord, and we move on to the next song, which is Early Days of Channel Fuhrer.
The snow is all around, like my hands, the snow is all around, like my hands. It is also white.
Beautiful. I'm an absolute sucker for anything predictably folky, as this one is. The beautiful harpsichord style pattern. Smith's whistling through his teeth. I don't know if it's Spencer or Steve Trafford on the guitar. I think, well, there's two guitars, but I don't know who's playing that kind of acoustic harpsichord thing. It's beautiful. And as far from the song it's up against as you can probably get, where's the chockies gone? Everything's where it should be, which is possibly the only criticism of a Fall song, that you've got a very neat and tidy slide guitar, a kind of simple Irish style drum. Yeah, in the bleak midwinter is what it reminds me of. Max agrees, touching and quite lovely, he says. Ezra, what's this one do for you?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's really interesting. Like, this was a kind of style that crept in around the edges in the final, decade or so, maybe, of the Fall's existence. And it's interesting because, yeah, I agree, What About Us is very, very, very different, but they're both off the same album. And yeah, well, with this song, I mean, from the title, Early Days of Channel Fuhrer, which is a fucking triumph of the English language in and of itself, it's an incredible lament for something. We've got no idea what, the snow is like his hat, and he gets brushed up against in Heathrow, and then he gets the man who brushes against me in beyond Vienna, ist schrecklich. No coffee for me. no room clearance for me for Der Meister is in Heathrow. It's completely beyond me what this could mean. But it's fucking beautiful. It's really nice. And it's the last thing you'd expect to hear on the record, pretty much. So 2 thumbs up here.
Yeah. And Smith just nails it. It's a beautiful vocal. It's one of those weird things where you're like, I could play this to someone and they think it was really sweet and nice, and then you catch yourself to like, no, as soon as Smith starts singing, anyone who's expecting some choral vocals would be, what the bloody hell's going on there? But for me, it's exactly what I want. Mike Lee says, early days of Channel Fuhrer are a very welcome, unfall-like sounding song. I wouldn't want a whole album of these kind of tracks, but like it a lot. I always look forward to the whir of all the chockies gone bit, which lightens the tone towards the end. Alistair, what does Channel 4, the early days of Channel 4 do for you?
Yeah, well, I like Countdown. That was good. Well, he's shot some dead good, like Eastern European animation as well. But the song really nice in it. It's that 3/4 beat waltzy kind of feel to it, with that acoustic guitar. Works really well. Smith's delivery as well. It's like very subtle. It's I don't know if it should be in the soppy section or not, but it's got that kind of sound to it. But yeah, it reminds me a bit of like Lee Hazelwood or something like that, or Bad Seeds. Shitloads of reverb in there, very nice, but it's just really charming little tune. Yeah, it reminds me of the Chris Isaak song Ruined in a Good Way. Or like other things that, it kind of like made me think of like Tinder Sticks, Bonnie Prince Billy, and sort of like Johnny Cash stuff, some of his later stuff. Good little tune. Yeah, absolutely. A crooner could do a lot with it, but I think Smith really owns it, and it's beautiful. And not one that I really paid much attention to before we started doing this. So another gift. There's a few covers out there, even though it's quite an obscure song. Someone does a really nice ukulele cover. Just wanted to have a little gander to that. Very nice. That's Narn Gordon. I'm going to give him a thumbs up. Good job there. Beautiful tune. Have I ever read what everyone else thinks? Leon didn't tell me what you thought of this one, I don't think. And what did Stu say? Let me see if I can find out. The light and ephemeral stuff this band did stands well above the pub rockers, and this is no exception. I've always loved its yearning quality, and Mez's vocals are perfect. I love the drum sound, too soft but weighty. The whole thing showed real restraint, and I always want to hear it again when it is finished. Yes. It is up against. Has everyone had a say there? I think they have. It is up against What About Us, as Michael Lee says, ruined by the fact that the Shipman stuff that seemed quite funny at the time is now just all we remember about the song. But maybe there's more to it, Michael. Let's have a listen and see what it does for us. There was indeed.
The good old days. Ezra, what do you make of What About Us?
Yeah, it's a great track. I really like the synth hook. I feel like they could have taken some of the guitars out a little bit more through the main body of the song and kind of stripped things down and gone more in the synth direction. I mean, this was the album they did after what was it?
Country on the Clip.
Yeah, that's it, Country on the Click. And so it feels like it's in a kind of a reaction to Country on the Click, in that it gets much more into your meat and potatoes, fucking rock and roll. And the thing that really does it for me is just Mez and the lyrics and his delivery. Like, he comes in with the ba 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 ba, and then he's like got the living leg ends going on, and then you just have this incredibly hilarious, surrealistic story about a rabbit who may or may not have been a drug dealer in East Germany and then comes over to the UK as an immigrant and may or may not be trying to continue as a drug dealer, or maybe the rabbit started dealing drugs in the UK while he was on the dole and, like, hoovering up all that free tax money from the hard workers of the British Isles. And then he learns about Howard Shipman, and it really fucking really sours his day, because he's just like, what about us, Shipman? What about us hardworking immigrant drug dealers? Or what about giving us some drugs instead of wasting them all on grannies who don't know what it's like to get high? And yeah, that's my very that's my unique spin on what I think this song might be about. It's, of course, impossible to see what it's actually about, but I find it really quite hilarious. And it seems like it was a bit of a live staple as well. From most of the live stuff I've seen from around this period and later, they would whip this one out. So you can see why it would be a crowd pleaser. I would definitely hop along to this one. So yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. It starts off with that really great buzzy kind of synth. Eleni, is it her second album? Because she's on Country on the Click, right? So then, and this is, it's only about 5 years after the total meltdown, after everyone had gone. Hanley had gone, Briggs has gone for good, Burns has gone, Monkey Sai, Craig had gone before that. So this is, like, for me, the comeback is complete. They're proper full-on stadium rock gods at this point. And interestingly, one of the YouTube always is trying to get me to watch that live one that's somewhere in Europe, and it's always What About Us, and sometimes Pacifying Giant as well. But it's a great rock dirgy thing, and Smith stands up brilliantly, even before we get to the lyrics. But just like the rocky songs on Imperial Wax and Your Future Clutter, they kind of blend into one. There's about 3 or 4 tracks on this record that kind of seem like they more or less are the same, but I don't think Smith would mind that in the slightest. It's just a great bed for him to, like, double track himself and sing about rabbits, and the one note breakdown is fantastic. And yeah, I didn't get until really today, I didn't get the idea of, like, what about us, Shipman, like being a question to be like, we know, why can't we have some of this stuff? You're dishing it out to the old grannies, where's ours? It's like, that's yeah, I finally got that might be where he was coming from. There's a video of him doing, like, Hit the North a couple of years earlier, where he's just started singing What About Us, Shipman. So prior to this, so it was obviously on his mind. Yeah. Al, what's it do for you?
Well, I'm a bit of a childish twat with a bit of a sick sense of humour at times. So yeah, I do get off on this to a certain extent. But yeah, I just think the riff's a bit generic. It's a nice riff, like, but it just goes on for too bloody long. Like, it just needs a little something else in there. There is some nice build-ups in there, but it's just a bit too baggy for my liking. Do like the ba 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 bits. That's all very good, but it's just reminds me of a Bad Stooges song with, like, Gary Newman jamming with him.
Fair enough.
That's poison.
I'm a naughty bugger at times, though.
I think it's not as wiry as I would have liked it. I mean, it is definitely getting into some sort of generic rocky sounds, but I can get on board with it for a while, especially when you have lyrics like that. We are living legends. I'm a rabbit from East Germany. I was very happy and I could get anything I wanted. Then I moved to North Britain. I became an immigrant. I could frolic around all night in the green grass. I was sort of happy. But then one night by the green grass, by a rubbish receptacle, I saw a newspaper. I was not very happy. There was a man going around all the time. He was dishing out drugs. He was a doctor, dishing out morphine to old ladies. I said, "What about us, shipman? Hop, hop, hop."
Yeah, I feel like that's like a pure protest. Like, I think I would like that's up there with who was that guy that Bob Dylan ripped off?
Yeah, Williams.
Todd Williams? No.
Hang Williams. Who knows?
Bernie Sanders. But anyway, yeah, really fucking great.
There's a great interview. Michael, I can't remember who it is, but he goes, "Yeah, I know who Shipman was." And Smith says, like, "Oh, let me ask you about the rabbit." And he says, "It's not about a rabbit. It's about an Eastern European fella who is grossly disappointed. They're plumbers and they're crushed. East German drug dealer, Shipman. Yes, I know who Shipman was. Yeah, not Shipman. That's the doctor, the main character, East German, who comes to Manchester, not Manchester, well, North Britain. Quite likes it, then finds out that Howell Shipman, that he can get drugs from his surgery. And the moral of the story is, I don't know." That's what Mez says. That's his statement on this song. Leon, again, much better in Peel version. Production and head's roll has a dulling effect. Yes, I agree. Hilarious lyric, but can't help thinking a more imaginative fall lineup might have done more. Not sure if the German rabbit is disillusioned or disappointed by the news of Shipman's murderous antics. It has always bugged me, says Michael Lee. This song is immediately after Pacifying Joint, as they're both very similar. This is the better of the two tracks, and the Shipman stuff seemed quite funny at the time, but now is just the song. While Max says, "Oh, the indignation of not being invited to Shipman's drug party. Hey, Peter Sutcliffe, why don't you give me a lift in your lorry? You selfish bastard." I don't know what the rabbit stuff is about. Anyway, it's a cracking tune. Always got the mosh pit hopping. Obviously, Eleni has the Gunther Liebsick rabbit, and she still occasionally will post pictures on Instagram and stuff of the rabbit. So he is out there. He is a very real rabbit. And Stu, always the voice of reason. What About Us? Very straightforward musically, very normal, with a lyric that is supposed to work like a working man's club comedy act joke. But for me, why don't we get some drugs? Falls flat. I do like the absurdity of Eleni's hop, hop, hop lines all the way through. I agree. I think it's good. Yeah, he was in love. He was in love with Eleni, and I think it was a beautiful time. And they had a little rabbit together. And what about them? What I would like to know is, what do we think is the best? Is it What About Us, or is it Channel Fuhrer? Ezra, which way are you going?
I think I have to go with the early days of Channel Fuhrer. It's got a unique tone. It's got its unique vibe. It's poetic. It's very, very beautiful. As much as I love What About Us, it's it's an anthem in the wrong way, where Totally Wired is an anthem in the right way. For me, anyway. Like, Smith brings greatness to it, and Eleni also brings some greatness to it, but the rest of it just can't justify its existence for me. It's a nice enough song, but yeah, it's got to be the Channel Fuhrer.
I get you, because the discography, especially the second half, the last 15 years, is kind of littered with, although What About Us is a really good version of it, but there's a lot of those meat and potatoes kind of songs that will get through to the third round, whereas Channel Fuhrer, for better or worse, is a real outlier in the catalogue. Stu's gone with Channel Fuhrer as well, as has Michael E. Max has gone with What About Us, so it's 3-1 as it stands. Al, which way are you going?
I'll go for She Watched Channel Fuhrer.
Aye, so it's a done deal, and I probably would. I might have been torn if it was closer, but yeah, Channel Fuhrer goes through. Brings us to the last showdown of the evening, which is Sinister Waltz up against Garden. Sinister Waltz, another in 3/4 time, as you would expect, and also a not very well known gem from the catalogue of Das Group. Sinister Waltz. Alice, do you like a little bit of Sinister waltzing, right?
Certainly like a bit of waltzing, yeah. Again, 2 songs in a podcast with a 3/4 time. It's just not very unusual for F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T to do that. Full stop, really. It's a nice backgroundy tune, very sort of soundtracky stuff. Wouldn't be a place on something like a David Lynch soundtrack, I think. It slightly reminds me of the Cardiacs. I think that's it's the synth and what's going on with her. But yeah, it's relentless. It just keeps on going. It's like it's in your face. But yeah, there's some really interesting like synth sounds going on there. Dead minimal. I suppose similar to What About Us, but with this, it kind of holds my attention a little bit more. I don't know if that's because of the timings of it. But yeah, the recording the vocal as well, that sort of like lo-fi sound, mixing in with a synth, I think is really effective. So yeah, Sinister Waltz, I do like.
Yeah, I'm a total sucker for this. Really minimal, really cheesy, and that telephone thing of Smith singing with that effect on his voice, which I believe is actually him singing down the telephone. I don't know how that works. Another minimal gem, Blue Danube keyboard, Casio presets and beats, and somebody's actually playing some noises in there as well, but doesn't get in the way. About a couple of minutes in, Smith feels it flagging, I think, and then he steps it up, and he does make it kind of rise, which is interesting. It's not just like he can't resist it. He just knows instinctively he has to do something else. That's really nice. Max does not necessarily agree. He says, feels like a little bit of a novelty item. While Leon says, as a staunch defender of the polygram era, I have a big yen for this synthy marvel. Smith's croaky phoned-in delivery and weird descending carousel feel a lovely little piece. Ezra, what do you make of it?
I too am an enormous fan of this track. I'm a big fan of the album Shift Work. I mean, yeah, it's got its rough edges and whatnot, but at its best, and this is an example of it at its best, it's pretty fucking unique in their discography, I think. And, you know, I've always been extremely skeptical of his position on the whole kind of like MDMA rave thing in Renegade, where he basically is just like, oh, ecstasy, terrible stuff. I never went near it myself, apart from that one time when I hallucinated numbers on trees or something. And it's like, yeah, come on, Mark. Who do you think you're kidding? I mean, like this album and Infotainment, it's obvious the whole band were chonging fucking pills like there was no tomorrow. Well, maybe not the whole band, but certainly there were likely some of them were doing that. And yeah, and for me, this song is one of them songs which perfectly is the soundtrack to taking too many drugs and feeling like you might not be able to follow that tiny thread back to your corporeal self. And it's really beautiful, and it's a masterpiece of simplicity, because it's essentially a demo on a keyboard, and Marky Smith probably very off his face, murmuring into the phone. But it's dead evocative, it's dead powerful, and it's a perfect last track for an album as well. You know, like you've had your drubbing and, you know, all the disco stuff, and then you've just got this weird Perfume for the final minutes, and I think it's great, really do.
Yeah, it's a very sweet tune, and it's just our sensibilities, right? Most groups of 3 or 4 Fall fans would have voted What About Us through, like, without a second thought. It's like, but sorry, it's going out to like the folk tune, and it's the same here. It's like, you know, Garden's an absolute monster, but you know, in any other context, it would not be even close. But it might go to the wire. We'll see. Michael E says, sounds a bit like a musical box tune being rendition on a Casio keyboard and was probably used as pre-show music, although I can't remember if it was. I have one live boot from 91 which cuts into Blood Out of Stone at the beginning, whereas Stu, shit disco, dull, slightly annoying. He does not have a lot of time for this.
Where does the disco come from? What's the disco element in this track?
Stuart, explain yourself. Are you saying the Casio keyboard is disco? If it is shit disco. I'll give you that, but I'm not sure it qualifies as disco. Yes. He must come down. He was fraternizing with a chimp. He embraced the hordes from the east. Down with the troops, the ironing board, so bless the floor. They know and the way, and with this curse, he must come down. Indeed, probably because of the Fiend with the violin idea and the sinister waltz thing, I do connect it somewhere to kind of the kind of overtly mystical stuff of the early days, Spectre versus Rector and things like that. Even though it's considerably later, I think it's one of the few. Given that shift work, a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the ideas are starting to become almost mundane. This is really mystical and beautiful. Any more thoughts on Sinister Walls before we move on? Then we move on to the last track of the evening, a Beast Garden.
First God has in his garden from the back looks like a household pet. When it swirled round, was revealed to be a three-legged black grey hog, a stylish punch. You have the second God's Wild Bill Hick shapes, chance, and laugh. And you want a motorbike? And you want a motorbike? And you want a motorbike?
Ooh la la. Garden. Alistair. What does it do to you and for you?
It does bloody everything. I think this one, Brendan. It's even before they get to the chorus, it's brilliant. Just you got the two drums set up. You got like the sort of tambourine in there, like amazing bass line, drony, charming guitars. Honestly, it's just fucking great. And then like later on, it just goes off its tits. You got all the evil synths and. It's just a bloody storm, isn't it? It's a great tune, which was it's funny enough, having What About Us on here, because this one's all about Graham Garden from the Goodies. He was a doctor as well. I think that Matt took a particular dislike to him, so that's what I'll ask about. But yeah, I cannot fault this song in any way whatsoever. It's not a short one and don't get boring. Any part of it just keeps on coming out with all the goodies all the time.
Indeed. So 83, I think, wasn't it? And it's nearly 9 minutes long. Fits beautifully in pervertible language along with Neighborhood of Infinity and I Feel Vox's Tempo House. I'm not sure when compared to those if it stands up, but I think it does. I'm not sure if it's my favorite of that group, but I think it's a fantastic rhythm, so much space, and the guitar is just off and wonky, and it just does what it does very naively, and it meanders. Smith breaks into some spoken word, and it's a pretty majestic kind of song. And if we compare it to everything else we've heard tonight, it's amazing that this is the same band that's putting out such quality of such different stuff a couple of years after Totally Wired and so on. Yeah, pretty amazing. Ezra, what does it do for you?
Oh, this is one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, it was dead interesting a while back where we were talking about the Doors, because I'd never really thought of the Fall through the prism of the Doors. But then when we get to it, this feels somewhat like the end or something, or, their version of the end. And for me, this is like, it's so incredible how they keep this dynamic and they keep this tension with so little. Like, the only things it really does to build up is like they start dropping the kind of like fills on the drums a bit more. Then they've got like some like kind of keyboard interjections that they start throwing in, like some Sunrise style kind of like stuff. And then like, you know, you've got Smith going, "Do you want a motorbike?" And that's kind of the crescendo of the song. And it's just incredible that they keep the kind of tension and the interest in it with so little. And it's lyrically, it is so fucking interesting. Like, it would be good to get back into it when Phil comes back and just attack it kind of verse by verse. Because, you know, from the start, we've got the first God had in his garden. From the back looked like a household pet. When it twirled round, was revealed to be the three-legged black-grey hog. See what flows from his mushy pen. Garden, garden. And when I first heard that, see what flows from his mushy pen, I was thinking of writing, right? Like pen as in a writing implement. But then when you factor in the hog, it's maybe, you know, like a pig pen, and maybe what's flowing from the mushy pen is mushy shit. So fucking interesting. There's layers and layers of meaning going on here. And then we go on to like, that person is filmed on TV 5 years back at least. He's the young generation dancing troupe trying to perform country and western. So is he talking about the original first God who kind of lives in shit, or his pet lives in shit? And that person, that God, is like a film on TV, so he's dated. Like the young generation dancing troupe, which is like some kind of travesty of youth culture on TV, trying to perform country and western, like, you know, cultural appropriation. It's so thick and rich with illusion and ideas. It's really gobsmackingly fantastic, I think.
Yeah, those lyrics, there's at least a handful of songs that would warrant an entire episode to go through the lyrics, and this is definitely one of them. Just such, I mean, you can't use the term garden and God without it opening up a massive area of exploration and ideas that then he just throws more and more at it without ever coming to any conclusions whatsoever, from what I could see. Never since courtship stayed up some nights. He had a Kingdom of Evil book under a German history book. He was contrived like that. See what flows from his slushy pen. In this sense, maybe it is the pen. In that other meaning, small location on huge continent, sodomized by presumption, a crook traitor past revealed at last. Godzone. Godzone can be erased. The entrails explosive charges. I got the idea from a book. Yours sincerely, Mr. Reg Barney, etc., etc. I could go on. And I hope we get the chance. Stu says, a masterpiece lyrically and musically sends me into another zone of consciousness. Visions of a demiurge in the expansive void. I do not understand the mushy pen on an intellectual level, but if I had a soul, I would feel something numinous deep inside it. So good, says Leon. The more years I listen to the Fall, the higher regard which I view PBL. Front to back, it might be their best this week. I do not disagree. This there's one thing that this competition has done is solidified Perverted by Language is probably my favorite album other than Grotesque from their first like 10 or so. And Michael E., I have no idea what lyrics are about, even though they were printed on the inner sleeve. A friend of mine at college thought Mez was singing Jew on a motorbike. She had on the tape compilation, which is a nice image, but wrong, of course. And you know, so many, you know, I've read that he actually did see a Jewish friend on a motorbike, but you can't escape the Jesus Christ Superstar came down from heaven on a Yamaha illusion either, I don't think. And finally, Max, the first time I ever took part in one of these fall knockouts, circa 2005 Garden, one spoiler alert, he's calling it, beating Wings in the final. Wings is already out, I think, which seems very wrong to me. It doesn't belong in the final 32. Ooh, it's a great track though, with tons of atmos. The tape dropping is hilarious and Mez is in top form. Hip preacher man mode. Is the duo on a motorbike the second coming of Jesus? A lot of this album feels like jams, but what top quality jams they are. Even though I'd love bricks to be fast, I'd love bricks. I love bricks. It'd be fascinating to see that parallel universe where she didn't join and where the band would have gone after PBL. It felt like they were going in a new direction. Then bricks took them in yet another direction. I agree. I would not be surprised if it goes top 16. But then again, like I said, Tempo House, I Feel Vox's Smile and Neighborhood of Infinity, all cut from a similar cloth. They're going to come up against each other sooner or later. So are you calling it, Ezra? Al, is this going all the way?
Top four for me.
Yeah, Sodomized by Presumption is probably my favorite lyric in any Fall song. He was contrived like that. Do you on a motorbike? I always took to be a reference to Bob Dylan.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, for me, this is peerless. Like, and I think, whoever it was that said it, Leon, I'm in complete agreement. Like, the more I listen to Perverted by Language, the more I think it is like possibly their top record. And for me, this is probably the highlight of the whole album. So I'm calling it.
I don't know if they put a foot wrong on that record. It's only 8 songs, and most of them are 6 or 7 minutes. As long as you're okay with Hotel Blodell, I don't think really anything else is even controversial. And maybe Sodomized by Presumption should have been the title of this podcast. There's still time. So let's take a vote. Which way are you going? Are we Garden? Chris at Patreon has only thrown in one thing on this entire episode, and he says Garden a clear winner. So I'm taking, given that Stu, Michael Lee, and Max have also voted for it, it might be a done deal. Which way are you going, Ezra?
Yeah, well, no spoilers here. I'm going for Garden, much as I love the Waltz.
Similar. Sinister Waltz, I can't, in all good conscience, vote for it against Garden, unfortunately. Alistair, are you going to be the lone voice?
It's not got a chance, has it, really, against Garden, but it's a great tune, and it'd be nice to revisit it again if we do have a futile, let's just string this out for a bit longer and drag a few back in sessions.
Why not? Well, we've put everything through recently, but hopefully we'll get a few episodes where nothing goes through, just like the good old days. Well, so that means Totally Wired, early days of Channel Fuhrer and Garden go through to the next round, while Squid, Lord, What About Us, and Sinister Waltz end up in the bin. They will get a second chance, but that is a very competitive second chance bin over there. So we done it. We brought her in a tight 90, which is very sweet. I shall see you all next week. I believe we have a guest. I'm not sure who it is. I can't remember. Maybe Rob. Be nice to have his dulcet tones back for another round. Yes. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Likewise.
Take care.
Cheerio.
Toodle pip.
We're gonna have fun.